The union leaders, again, many of them faced double life imprisonment, of which of the eight, six have been acquitted and two are taking their battle up to the Supreme Court. This was 2009. Maybe by the time they get acquitted, it will be 2019. We don't know. What Comrade Prafulla shared over here with POSCO, it has taken us 12 years to get justice. As we know from the devastated lives of many of our Adivasi and our Dalit and our Muslim youth, that it is over a decade-long struggle, sometimes just to get out of jail, sometimes to secure bail. That's the story that happens. The reason I wanted to start with the story of the struggle of the pre-call workers is that unlike the Maruti struggle, in the pre-call case, the workers actually secured favorable orders from the Madras High Court, from the Supreme Court, and the government also recorded pre-call's unfair labor practices on the floor of the Tamil Nadu State Assembly in response to the calling of attention motion moved by opposition parties. In addition, the union struggle also forced the Tamil Nadu government to repeatedly censure pre-call management. It issued 3 advices, passed 1 government order prohibiting continuance of lockout, passed 3 government orders for references, and 2 orders under Section 10B of the ID Act. In spite of all this, and in spite of the fact that management recognized the union of the pre-call workers and even signed settlements with them, in spite of that, we see the specter of the union that led that particular struggle ending up in jail, ending up with life sentences, and still battling. The case has not come to an end. As everyone here is aware, that this is a familiar tale of oppressive working conditions, workers demanding redress of grievances and finally resorting to union formation, facing series of unfair labor practices, which of course the Labour Department and the state government turns a blind eye to. There is in every instance, whether around the country, there's a continuing provocation to violence. And when workers don't take the bait, there's instigation of violence by hired goons and mischief makers. And then, of course, the state steps in, sends its platoons of the police to turn what should be an industrial relations issue, a labor rights issue, into a law and order issue, and foists false cases on the workers and jails them. This is another familiar pattern where we see the foisting of false cases, the specter of so-called Maoist penetration of urban industrial spaces. The same rhetoric was used in pre-call, the same rhetoric was used in Maruti. Denial of bail as a form of punishment, whether to workers, to human rights defenders, to tribals, Adivasis, rural populations, anyone standing up for their rights. Denial of bail has become the new justice or injustice that we must pay special attention to. Another tactic that they have been using is, of course, as we saw both in the FIR of the pre-call workers and the Maruti workers, the tactic of using some, 40 names and X others, 500, 600 others. बीच में किसी को भी उठा के जो है जेल में डाल देंगे और उसको जो है उसके ऊपर भी जो है केस ठोक देंगे. The other tactic that is being used, again, this was used in pre-call, use of armed reserve police. Armed reserve police was used for an entire year prior to the September 2009 incident in pre-call. And the Maruti chairman, R.C. Bhargav, had also announced the use of armed reserve police, CISF and others after the 18th July incident. The other, another aspect that I want to highlight is what I call the securitization of industrial spaces, accompanied by criminalization of labor. So that labor matters become subject of criminal law instead of the civil domain of industrial and labor law and industrial relations framework. And securitization, of course, begins very innocuously with CCTV cameras installed in shop floors and in meeting rooms. It progresses to armed security roaming the shop floor in cities, as they did in Honda in 2008. And this I actually want to stop for a moment and point out, because I don't know how many of you are aware that in 2008, the entire, almost 80% of the Honda, this is the Honda, the motorcycle and scooter, the Manesar plant, that first the 80% of the leadership, the union leadership was suspended. After months of negotiations, when they came back and they actually joined the negotiation process for a long-term settlement, the day they actually, and we already had these armed so-called security of the management roaming the shop floor, but the day they got up after signing the settlement, they saw that the entire building was surrounded by these armed gunmen. So imagine, and it doesn't take too much of an imagination, because in the Maruti case, when the union leadership was actually taken into custody in the name of long-term settlement, when they didn't agree to the terms of the management, the minute the Labour Department officials moved out of the room, the police swooped in and picked them up and threw them into jail. So the reason I'm tracing this is that this has been a long time in the making. And as speakers this morning said, कि वो छोटी-छोटी बातों को अगर हम नजरअंदाज कर दे, if we don't stand up and resist when the little violations, the smaller violations are happening, then we are faced with the kind of situation that we are faced with today. And the same thing happened with Maruti twice, where once the police is called in on a Sunday, and on Monday the management announces a lockout. Now, Section 10 of the Industrial Disputes Act gives the government powers to suo motu intervention if it anticipates any problems or any dispute or any conflict. The fact that you have many platoons of the cops being called and being housed, खा पी सो रहे थे वो लोग एक दिन पहले से, टीने की पूरी दीवार तुमने खड़ी कर दी, तो हरियाणा गवर्नमेंट को ये नहीं पता चला कि there's a conflict that is about to happen. But no, the Haryana government did not exercise. So when this morning Comrade Uday Kumar was saying that the government was using tactics of ignore, insult, intimidate, I would say that this is another example of ignore, insult, and then intimidate. Because not only did they not stop, so they ignored the signs of an industrial conflict that are about to take place, then they insult by turning a blind eye and actually telling the Maruti workers and shamelessly telling the world, the Chief Minister of Haryana saying, we will not allow a union to be registered in the Maruti factory, going against the constitution. तो हुडा सरकार से लेकर मोदी सरकार या खट्टर की सरकार में, मतलब the level of brazenness is just rising. The gloves are off today. So in fact I was grappling this morning कि मैं यहाँ आके कोई polite conversation रखूं या मैं कहूं that the gloves are off and there's nothing more to say, so you know it's a civil war, let's go fight that war. And actually if we don't and it's no longer I was about to say if we don't ensure a rule of law, but it's no longer a rule of law, it's a rule of impunity. The rule of law is actually for those of us. हम लोगों को लॉ के इस बड़े जाल में फंसा के हमें बोल दिया जाता है, you're not behaving according to the law. But the lawmakers, the upholders of the law, the so-called upholders of the law, are the ones who are at the forefront of violating the law. And अगर इस प्रकार की uneven लड़ाई है, as the UN Special Rapporteur said, when economic globalization has turned I'm paraphrasing him, but he was basically saying that when economic globalization has created such an unequal playing field, and the terms of engagement are changing so fast that we need to change the way we are organizing and protecting workers' rights. And I would extend that to say all our rights, civil, political, economic, social rights. If this was not enough, the Haryana government, and I come back to Haryana government, has also 5 more minutes. I'll finish in 5 minutes. If getting reserve police on the campuses of our companies is not enough, if securitization of our industrial spaces is not enough, the Khattar government in last February in 2016 announces the setting up of police stations in industrial parks. For what? To check unrest and get industrial intelligence units to look for signs of festering industrial unrest in order to improve security for whom? For investors. Okay, so अगर अभी जज ने बार बार बेल डिनाई करने से लेकर जजमेंट देने तक अगर वो कह रहे हैं that this is reminding me of the conscience of the nation needs to be appeased. Here it is again the conscience of the nation needs to be appeased, and actually the conscience of the confidence of the investors needs to be appeased, because these men have to go to the gallows to instill confidence in our investors that Haryana is safe, or Tamil Nadu is safe, or Maharashtra is safe for you to come and invest in. Because we don't, I also want to say that another strategy that the Haryana government is learning from Tamil Nadu is to declare different industries as essential services. So it's in one of its business promotion policies of last year, it is saying that it is going to be announcing, I haven't seen the announcement yet, I may have missed it, that key sectors, which are these key sectors? IT, auto, textiles, electronics, will be declared as public utilities, and thereby, of course, inviting the invocation of ESMA to curb the workers' rights to go on strike. I think what I'm trying to say is that in these ways, by securitizing our production systems, I don't know how many of you read Aman Sethi's piece a couple of years ago of one of the Haryana companies actually starting a production unit inside Tihar jail. Okay, so following the US model of industrial prison complex. So we no longer, but this government has gone further than that. We no longer have to send, take prisoners and set up industrial units inside Tihar jail or any other jail. You just turn your IMT Manesars and your Udyogyas into a prison, into an open-air prison. Of course, it reminds me of Gaza, but whenever I say open-air prison, but really turn our industrial spaces into that, and you don't need to do anything more. The labor laws have already, the so-called reforms have already thrown a majority of our workers outside the purview of labor laws. In fact, the labor law reforms is nothing more than giving legal cover to existing illegal practices. That is what labor reforms is all about. अभी यहाँ बैठे हुए थे तो 16 मार्च को already they have turned out a code on so-called security, social security. The Factories Amendment Bill has been sent out by the government, and in another week or so we'll probably be getting another code on occupational safety and health and everything. It's a 175-page document, and they expect everyone to get their heads together and respond to it in a month. We will try our best to do that with consultations with all affected groups. But I think what I want to end with in tying up with what our friends and colleagues and comrades have been saying all morning, that, and this is very much true in at least the industrial spaces where I organize, that the specter of violence is being used as a disciplining mechanism. As we can see with Maruti, as we can see with Honda, as we can see with Pricol, as we can see 302 और 307 की धारा तो पता नहीं मतलब पिछले 10 साल से जो है हरियाणा में लगती आई है. पशुपति spinning mills में जाएंगे, if we go to 96, 97, police was invited into the boardroom, into the conference room when long-term settlements were being negotiated. But the manner in which the police stations were used as extension, and the police force was used as an extension, as the private army of the company, to actually give company notices to the workers after the 18th July incident, to actually haul their innocent parents and relatives and keep them in custody until their sons surrendered. We're seeing a very different moment in this long trajectory of securitization and using violence as a disciplining mechanism for all workers. On top of that, because of the economic globalization and the LPG policies and the liberalization policies that the country has been following, the specter of crushing poverty is another disciplining mechanism for all workers. And lastly, not to forget, that the specter of sexual violence on the shop floor and in our workspaces as a disciplining mechanism for our women comrades, I think that is also something that we need to take into account. And I will end being inspired by what comrades on this panel have said, and also what Prashant was saying. I think it's important that I know, Comrade Shaktiman, that you said that you didn't see the workers flooding into the streets after the Maruti judgment came, but the workers were in one voice. At least 1 lakh workers in the Gurgaon, Dharuheda belt, Manesar belt, did give up. Given the environment of intimidation that exists in that belt today, I think it was a big move by all the workers to give up food, and spontaneously being joined by workers around the country calling and saying, is this a all India call? Even if it isn't, we are giving up food in solidarity. I think that was important. I think what is important is that the Maruti workers spontaneously, and here I do want to say, वो यूनियन लीडर्स खड़े थे या नहीं खड़े थे, जैसे वृंदा ने बोला कोर्ट में, it is actually the pressure of the workers on the shop floor saying, तुम करो या ना करो, हम तो करेंगे. So when they decided on that 1 hour tool down, management put up a notice saying for every 1 hour of tool down, 8 days of wage cut. Workers still did a 1 hour tool down. So I think these small resistances are very important. Otherwise, when we went to the courtroom, there were more cops, there were in riot gear, there were commandos. That's how afraid the state is of these small acts of resistances as well. So I think we should take them very seriously. Thank you all very much.